Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the regular meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission. I'd like to start off by having the members introduce themselves, starting on my far left.
Alan Weiner, City Planner.
John Soers, Vice Chairman.
And on my far right.
Paul Schroeder, the City Engineer.
Jody Zills-Gagney, alternate.
Gary Lawton, alternate.
Roland Larger, alternate.
Jerry Ergen, Commissioner.
Marie Keaton, Commissioner.
Bill Veets, Chairman. We have a couple, well, before we go into the minutes, just want to remind everybody that the next regular meeting of the Bristol Planning Commission will be Wednesday, February 25th, 2015. We have a couple meetings that we have to approve, and each meeting will have different members that were at the meetings to vote on. So the first one would be the minutes of our regular meeting on December 22nd, 2014. The voting members on that would be Commissioner Soers, Commissioner Lawton, Commissioner LaRanger, and myself. Commissioners had a chance to look at the minutes and review them. If there are no additions or deletions, a motion would be in order to accept.
Make a motion that the Commission accept the minutes of the December 22nd, 2014 regular meeting.
Second.
And second, any discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next minutes for approval will be a special meeting on December 30th. And the voting members on that would be Commissioner Soers, Commissioner Harrigan, Commissioner LaRanger, and myself. And again, the commissioners had a chance to review these. And if there's any additions or deletions, please say so now.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Commissioner Gagney was absent from that meeting.
Yes.
Yes, I was.
Yes, she was. Okay. We'll make a note of that and put that in the minutes. Other than that, the motion would be in order to accept with the change.
Motion to accept the meeting, or the minutes of the meeting of December 30th, 2014, with the change noted.
Second.
Motion was made and second. Any discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And for our regular meeting tonight, one of our regular members is absent, Commissioner Delaria, and in his place as a voting member will be Commissioner Gagney. Next.
Mr. Chairman, our next order of business is public hearings. We have application 381 subdivision, 373 Wolcott Street, one lot to two lots, Assessor's Map 7, Lot 37-1, R15 single family residential zone. Richard Frazier, the applicant.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Commission, there are no additional items of correspondence associated with this application. You had previously received a copy of the application itself, of course. You also received, at the time of the application acceptance, a brief letter from Marcella Frazier, who is the owner of the property, requesting a waiver of the rear lot provision of the zoning regulations. And as I noted again, that's all the correspondence we have so far on this application.
Okay. Well, since this is a public hearing, anyone wishing to speak for or against this, just state your name and address for the record, please, and spell the last name for our secretary.
I provided the correspondence secretary, but that's my name.
Okay. Yeah, just put it on record, please. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. My name is Seth Bovino, planner for Kratzer Jones and Associates, located in Southington. Represent the applicant. The subject property is located at 373-377 Wilker Street. It is identified on the assessor map number 7 as lot 37-1. The property is zoned R15 and served by public water and sewer. My client has owned this property since November 23rd, 1982. The land area is just short of 40,000 square feet. It's actually 39,928. The proposal for your consideration is a subdivision to create a rear lot. The front lot has the appropriate area, which is 15,000 minimum. The lot frontage is 130.38 feet. The minimum required frontage for that lot is 100. The requirements for the rear lot are spelled out in your regulations, section 4.8.13, items A through G. We meet all of those requirements. As example, the access strip cannot be more than 300 feet. Our proposal does not exceed 100 feet. The proposed driveway for the rear lot will use the same curb cut as the existing one for the existing structure in the front. Therefore, we will not require an additional one. All the appropriate zoning, erosion control notes, and details are shown on the plans. If this proposal is approved, the plan calls out the construction sequence that the owner has to follow to build the house. Step 1, notify the city planning and engineering department. Step 2, install erosion control measures, etc., etc. The property slopes from the north, which is at the roadway, to the south toward the rear of the property. The land eventually drains into a large wetland area to the south off of our property. The maximum grade for the proposed driveway is 9% for a short distance to work with the existing grades. The proposed house has a walkout basement. Therefore, there will not be major cuts or fills, so the house blends with the slopes that are today. We propose to direct the roof leaders into an underground storage area to allow clean water from the roof to recharge the ground and at the same time limit drainage runoff from the property. The proposal is harmonious with the neighborhood and does not have any negative impact on the safety and welfare of the same. The board that's on the stand here, just for orientation purpose, up is the north, and the roadway, Wilker Street, is right there. The existing property is this total area. The red is the existing structure with the driveway, existing driveway, and walkways to enter the facility there. The proposed rear lot is the green area with the driveway located on the west side of the property, leading from the existing driveway to the back to the proposed house. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Mr. Lanier, any comments, questions?
Well, I have a very specific question for Mr. Bovino. The city's subdivision regulations, as written, don't allow a rear lot in a subdivision this small. There's also provision in the regulations under which the commission, based upon a written request and making determination, can waive certain requirements of these regulations, the subdivision regulations. The applicant has requested a waiver of the rear lot limitation, but they provided nothing in writing that speaks to the conditions under which the commission can grant such a waiver. Their request simply requests the waiver.
I'm sure
Can you speak specifically to the 5 conditions that need to be satisfied per the subdivision regulations having to do with granting of waivers.
I don't have that in front of me, and I was not prepared to address those. I was looking at I haven't received any comments from your office, and my client has not either.
Well, regardless of that, your client has made the request in writing for a waiver. He was made aware of that at the beginning. He was made aware of that at the beginning and submitted, when he filed the application, he submitted a letter requesting a waiver. He was, I believe, the assistant city planner discussed with him and explained to him the need to provide additional information. I think they had those conversations verbally.
So I understand correctly, there was 2 waivers that are required, or only one waiver required?
There's one waiver required, but without it, he can't get a rear lot.
Okay, so the waiver requirement is for the rear lot.
That's the request that was made.
Yeah. Well, I can summarize based on my experience in land development.
It's not based on your experience in land development. It's based upon the conditions specified in the subdivision regulations, the conditions under which the commission can consider and perhaps grant a waiver of certain requirements of the subdivision regulations.
Well, then I would request that this be tabled so we can study that requirement and give you an answer. In addition to that, if you want the client to speak and address the commission, he's here tonight.
That's entirely up to the commission, but that's something the commission should consider. You may want to, Mr. Chairman, you may want to continue the hearing. There may be people in the audience who wish to speak about the application.
Great.
And then you can decide if you want to continue the hearing tonight or not.
Okay. I mean, if you want your client to speak, that's fine. I mean, we went over this last month, and it was referred. Wait a minute. It was referred to the subdivision regulation on page 3 with the 5 provisions of a waiver, because the actual subdivision indicate that if it's a subdivision between 1 and 4 rear lots, then there's no rear lots. And that's why the waiver on page 3 here, there's 5 conditions here. And I don't know if you reviewed them.
I'd like to have a copy of that. And
it's in our subdivision regulations.
Tell them.
It's in our subdivision regulations.
So I was not part of that meeting, Mr.
Right.
Chairman. The client did indicate to me that he had requested a waiver, but he was not sure what that waiver was for, and he was told that a public hearing was required. And so that was scheduled for tonight.
Right.
And I was prepared only to discuss the proposal itself and not addressing the issue of the waiver.
All right.
So we need to work on that.
Okay, so are you asking us to continue this to next month?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, let's see if anyone here wants to speak for or against this. All right, thank you. Anyone wishing to speak for or against this? Just state your name and address for the record, please. And just spell your last name for the secretary.
My name's Dave Gerard, and
Your last name, spell it please, last name. Gerard. Mr. Gerard, just spell your last name.
Sir, please spell your last name for the record. This is being recorded.
Girard.
Okay, thank you. And your address
Your
for the
address.
Pardon? Pardon?
Your address.
391 Wilkins.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry.
I know, I understand. Go ahead.
I'd like to know why, a rental property is being built in the back of this property. He wants to build something. Is it going to be a home that's going to be sold, or is it going to be another rent?
We have no idea. We have no idea.
And just so the commission cannot regulate that. All the commission can do is regulate the division of the property into building lots. The zoning regulations will limit it to a single-family home, but whether or not the property is sold, whether the house is rented, is not within the jurisdiction of this commission.
I believe at last month's meeting, the applicant indicated that he wanted to rent it so he can have some extra income. I could be wrong, but I believe that's what he said.
I just want to know because, I live next to it.
Right.
I've lived next to it for about 30 years.
Okay.
And my home is the second oldest house in Bristol. And and we put a lot of work into this thing. And sometimes, you know, we sit out there and them boom boxes are going crazy. And then we hear a lot of coarse language.
Yep.
And we put up with a lot of baloney. And now all of a sudden we find out this could be built in the back. And, you know, all I want to know is our neighborhood a residential neighborhood?
The answer is yes.
Yes, it is.
It is a single-family residential neighborhood,
Yeah.
and if the applicant gets an approval from this commission, he will be allowed to build one additional single-family residence.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Commissioners, any other questions? If not, we'll have a motion to continue this to our next meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission continue application 381 subdivision 373 Wolcott Street, 1 lot to 2 lots, assessors map 7, lot 37-1, R15, single family residential zone. Richard Brady is the applicant, to our next regular meeting of February 25th, 2015.
Second.
Motion was made and second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
There are none. New applications, there are none. So we move down to zoning commission referrals. We have application 2178, change of zone from A, multifamily residential to BHC, Route 72 corridor business at 266 Pine Street, Accessory Map 3, Lot 44B. John A. Sinise, the applicant.
All set.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, my name is Andre Doorbell, and I represent the applicant. My address is 25 North 17 Riverside Avenue, Bristol, Connecticut.
Forget where you live. Thank you.
The application in question is really an application to extend the Route 72 business corridor zone an additional 100 feet down Pine Street. The lot in question is shown as Assessor's Map number 3, parcel 44B, and it's roughly 330 feet long by, it's 100 feet frontage on Pine Street and 90 feet to the rear of the property. It's adjacent to another lot that is owned by my client, which is on the corner of Emmett and Pine Street. It's a vacant lot currently, and it's across the street from Pine Street from the Crowley parking lot that they house a lot of their recreational vehicles in, kitty corner to the former Hildreth Press, and there's a Valero gas station on the opposite corner. What we're requesting is that the 100-foot by 330-foot lot, which is adjacent to my client's lot. My client's lot is currently in the Route 72 business corridor zone. The lot in question is currently in an apartment zone, and ultimately we're asking that it be incorporated into one parcel so that it would be more advantageous for the development of the property. Currently, that corner lot is difficult to develop in conformity with the Route 72 business corridor. It's only 125 feet wide. It has 25-foot rear line and sideline requirement, as well as a 20-foot front line requirement. In addition, the entire frontage of that adjacent piece is restricted so that it cannot get access to Pine Street, and ultimately approximately half of the length on Emmett Street is also restricted for access because of the proximity to the corner. Currently, the Route 72 business zone extends basically from the CVS pharmacy on the opposite side of the street, all the way down through the Crowley parking lot where the recreational vehicles are. On the northerly side of Pine Street, it runs from Aldi's through my client's lot. There's a stretch which is not in the Route 72 business corridor, but is in a BN zone. But effectively, all of you are familiar with that stretch, and it's completely commercial in nature. So what we're really asking is for the opportunity to extend that zone for an additional 100 feet so that it can be developed in a consistent manner to the Route 72 corridor. Currently, the intent is to put a gas station convenience store, but as you're all aware, that we're not restricted by that, but that is the current intent. And my client has had some negotiations with the companies relative to that. The proposed development would certainly greatly increase the tax base to the city of Bristol. Currently, it's empty land. Formerly, that lot was owned by the state of Connecticut, so it wasn't taxed at all. So ultimately, if in fact my client is able to develop that property as he intends, it would be a substantial improvement to the tax base for the city of Bristol. As part of the zoning process, as all of you are aware, if my client were to be granted a zone change, he would still be required to go through and get a special permit for this development as it's currently intended, and he would also have to get site plan approval from the zoning commission. So ultimately, all the details of the development would be handled subsequent to this zone change application, but obviously we can't go there until the zone has been changed. As I mentioned, the area is completely commercial all the way down from Aldi's down through this area, and quite frankly, I believe there are 4 lots that were kept in an apartment zone, and I think that's because there was structures on the property for those 4 lots. There's 1 vacant lot, but it's my client's hope to combine the 0.6 acre piece in question with a 1.2 acre piece that he owns to the west of that parcel on the corner of Pine and Emmett Street. And I'll be glad to answer any questions that any of you might have.
We'll start off with Mr. Weiner.
I'll reserve the comment until commission members have had that opportunity.
Commissioners, any questions, comments?
Are you saying you can't develop the size of the property he has now?
It's possible that it could be developed, but certainly it would be extremely limited in nature as to the potential development of that property, primarily because of the access issues as well as the side rear yard issues.
So basically what he wants this property for is the access that he's not allowed from where his property line butts to the property line that's there to around the corner. Because right now, the only development he could do here would be access off of Emmett Street.
He'd have to come in off of Emmett Street. That's correct.
But if he takes this other property, he doesn't have to worry about that because that has access. There's no access restriction on that property to 66 Pine Street because there's already a sidewalk cut there for the residential area now that's there.
There's already a curb cut in existence. So ultimately, it would give him an opportunity to have access from both Pine Street and Emmett Street.
Not that it's really pertinent, but why a gas station and convenience store?
Basically, he was approached by a national company who's had discussions with him relative to the development of that parcel, and obviously, he would like to develop it in what we feel is an appropriate manner, considering the purpose of the Route 72 business corridor. So.
And the only comment I want to make, and Mr. Weiner, correct me if I'm wrong, I know when we did the Route 72 study, I know one of the things we didn't want was like a gas station that does repairs auto body and anything like that. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm going to speak to that issue
Oh, okay. All right.
further if you'd like.
Sure, go ahead.
Again,
Okay, hold on.
Sure.
Mr. Strongman, any comments or questions?
Just because I think you said it, but I missed it. The vacant property to the east, that's not Mr. Sneese's property, correct?
Correct.
And what's the zoning on that piece?
That is an A zone.
Okay, thank you.
There are 4 lots of, looking at the map, it looks approximately 100 foot apiece that are currently in A zone.
Any other comments or questions for the applicant, commissioners?
Again, if I may,
Go ahead.
the zoning regulations for that particular zone indicate with a special permit a motor vehicle filling station, including a convenience store.
Okay. Mr. Weiner?
Thank you. A couple of things to point out. One is, Mr. Chairman, you are correct that when the Planning Commission conducted the Route 72 corridor study, it's hard to believe this is almost 10 years old.
Wow.
When you conducted this study in the early 2000s and you adopted it in 2005, one of the concerns about the Route 72 corridor was that automotive uses, in particular those that can tend to be an eyesore and problematic, repair garages, junkyards, those kinds of automotive facilities were recommended to not be allowed in the zone. When the Zoning Commission established the BHC, the Route 72 corridor business zone, the only automotive use that they allow in that zone, and it is by special permit, is a gas station. So repair garages and similar kinds of service kind of facilities are specifically excluded because they're not listed in the zoning regulations. So, and it is a special permit use. If you look at, and I'm not sure how many of you folks have the Route 72 study with you tonight, but there was a future land use plan that was part of the study, and it's identified as figure number 6. And that figure shows, in very general terms, future land use along the corridor. And for both the corner property and the property that's the subject of the zone change, they were identified on the plan as being used for what was known as community commercial purposes. So again, that's not a zoning designation, but the idea was uses that serve the surrounding neighborhoods and the entire city, retail services, personal service establishments, business offices. And it does say that automotive, motor vehicle uses are excluded from this category. And again, my recollection is that the Commission was really thinking more on the kind of the heavy commercial service kinds of facilities. So this piece of property, as well as the one on the corner, are identified as being used in the future for commercial purposes. I think that when the Zoning Commission, and I'm speculating here a little bit, that I think when the Zoning Commission created the BHC zone and placed it on the zoning map, there were areas where they left it off the map with the intention that at some point in the future a property owner would come along and make an application to change the zone, and then depending on the circumstances at the time, in terms of existing land uses, would make a determination on what to do with changing the zone. And for example, if the properties to the east of the subject property were in fact developed as an A zone multifamily, there might be more resistance to changing this piece of property, given that there'd be a lot more multifamily development abutting it, whereas right now the immediate the two pieces immediately to the east are both pretty much vacant. They're zoned for a multifamily, but they're both vacant. I think, or there may be a house on...
There's a house on the piece in question.
Right.
The next lot is a vacant
It's
lot.
vacant.
There's a residential dwelling,
A single-family house.
single-family house,
Right.
and then there's a small apartment.
It's apartment building. And all those properties are zoned for A.
Right. And it's purely conjecture on my part, but it's possible that the commission zoned it A because there were residential dwellings on that point.
Yeah, because there is an apartment building, and I think and that was zoned A previously. So, this kind of request gives this commission and the zoning commission the opportunity to judge based on Route 72 having been extended in and development beginning to take place along the corridor, how best to handle actual development in the corridor. So the Route 72 corridor study does show this, as I said, as a commercial area or commercial property. The other thing I would note is that both the subject property and the property on the corner are within the access management area for Route 72, so that regardless of how these two properties are developed, the zoning commission will be looking at trying to limit the number of curb cuts that occur when these properties are developed, so that's another safeguard to try to reduce the number of curb cuts along Route 72 as it develops and redevelops. As Attorney Dorval's indicated, the land north of this across Pine Street is in a general business zone. The gas station on the opposite corner is in I believe it's in a general business zone as well, or maybe in a BHC zone.
It's in a BHC
I stand corrected on both counts. Those are in a BHC zone. The properties to the south along Sycamore Street are in a residential zone, but at this immediate corner, the BHC zone is on all four corners. So you and the zoning commission are being asked whether it is or isn't appropriate to extend that BHC zone one more property over to include the land that's is the subject of this zone change. If you do recommend approval of the zone change, you should state a reason on the record. You may want to consider, and I know you've done this recently with a couple of other requests, if you feel that the development of this piece of property, if you're looking in favor of the zone change, but feel that the development of this piece of property should be tied in to the adjoining property, you could include in your recommendation a suggestion to the zoning commission that if they do grant the zone change, that the two properties need to be merged before the zone change takes effect. So that way, if they do approve the zone change, the applicant can't develop this property independently of the property on the corner. They've represented that that's not their intention, but that would perhaps help safeguard it a bit.
And again, we would have no objection to that stipulation. Quite frankly, the subject parcel is 100 feet wide, and it really can't be developed on its own.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the applicant? Comments?
I don't know. I'm not feeling this. Because with 72 getting busier and stuff, he's going to want to access, from just the way I'm looking at it, he's going to want to access that new property for his entrance or his exit. With 72 sometimes backed up on that part of Pine Street, and I've lived there most of my life, that part, who's going to come in and people are going to try to get in and out as fast as they can. Something's going to happen.
And again, both pieces of properties are in the access management overlay. And one of the purposes of that is to, as much as possible, reduce the number of curb cuts that can occur on Route 72. And I think what you have to keep in mind is, if the zone isn't changed, and I'm not saying this to advocate for the zone change, But if the zone change were denied, the applicant, the owner of the property, could develop the property in an A zone and use the curb cut on Pine Street already, and couldn't be denied the use of the curb cut.
And it possibly could be an access for the consolidation of the 4 apartment zoned lots and ultimately access to the Pine Street. And again, as Mr. Weiners pointed out, you know, this is obviously got to be reviewed by the zoning commission as part of the site plan, part of the special permit, and also you need state approval to access the highway. So we're just at the initial stage here of a proposal to try to develop that parcel. And again, realistically, I think this makes more sense to develop the subject parcel in an apartment zone, in a BHC zone, than in an apartment zone.
So I do have one question.
Sure.
Has your client given any thought about purchasing that vacant lot and making that lot even larger and possibly moving the curb cut further away from the light? It's not really, but it's just a question.
You know, certainly, if it made sense to do that, obviously we have no idea who the owner of that property is. At least I don't at this point in time. So, you know, but it probably does make sense, you know, for the next individual who owns that lot conceivably to come in or request a change of zone as well.
Thank you.
I have a question. Right now, there's only access to the corner lot, the larger lot. The only access is on Emmett. The only place you could have a curb cut would be on Emmett Street right now?
That's correct.
So if these two were merged together, suggestion were made and they were merged together, you could have access on Emmett Street and have a curb cut on Pine Street possibly, correct?
With the obtainment of the necessary approvals from the zoning commission in the state of Connecticut.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Commissioners?
Give a favorable approval to the zoning commission to change the zoning on application 2178 according to from a multifamily residential to a BHC, the Route 72 corridor business at 266 Pine Street. I don't have the study in front of me, but I want to refer to the 72 corridor study, which Alan clearly designated that we had talked about future uses for those properties. It was page. Oh, all right. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. So we're future land use. It was on map figure 6. And plan development.
That's not the planned development. That's the Route 72 corridor.
72 corridor, sorry. I'm just looking for the line.
Oh, again, it's not in the text.
Oh, it's not?
The map.
It's on the map.
The map designates that area as for future commercial development.
Correct.
Motion was made. Is there a second? Second. Motion was made and seconded.
Does the commission want to recommend about the lots being merged before the zone change?
Oh, thank you, yes.
It's
I did have that written down too. Thank you. However, amendment to that, you can go with it, is that the two properties be merged before the zone change is finalized.
Okay. So motion was made and amended, and the vote would, yeah. Is there a second on the motion? Okay. Any discussion? Any further discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
The next order of business, Mr. Chairman, the City Council now refers, we have the sale of municipal property 801 Burlington Avenue.
Mr. Chairman, you have in your packets a letter from Attorney Simonik to Mr. Strawderman, dated January 21st, 2015, from the Real Estate Committee, and they referred the sale of this property, or the proposed sale of this property, to the Commission. Again, this is the property 801 Burlington Avenue. That's the property on the corner of Burlington and Peacedale Street, where the house was torn down. Again, this is a referral to you under 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes. So your determination really is whether or not you believe the city has any particular need to retain this piece of property. If you do, then you'd recommend that to the Real Estate Committee. If you feel the city has no specific need for the property, presumably you'd recommend that the city not acquire the property. Or, I'm sorry, recommend that the city sell the property.
Is it known what the state of Connecticut's condemnation action is?
Yes. The state of Connecticut is proposing to make improvements to the intersection of Burlington Avenue, Maple Avenue, and Peacedale Street. I believe they're going to add a lane in, I believe, in all four directions. I'm not sure. So they have been acquiring rights-of-way strips near this intersection, near and at this intersection, to get the additional land for the widening. They are proposing, as part of that project, to acquire a small strip along the Maple Avenue frontage of this, I'm sorry, not the Maple Avenue, the Peacedale Street portion of this property.
Commissioners, what are your thoughts? You have the city retain it, or have the city sell it?
I'm wondering if the city can sell it with the condemnation action pending, if they can...
Well, I think the condemnation action, quite honestly, I think that is somewhat of an overstatement as to they're not condemning the property.
They might take it on eminent domain.
They will either through, whether the city is the owner of the property or there's somebody else, they will try to acquire it through purchase. If they can't do that, they would do it through eminent domain. Again, I don't think the state needs the whole property. In fact, the state, for the intersection project, doesn't need the whole property. They just need a strip along the frontage. So it's a condemnation if it was an adversarial action. In worst case, it'd be through eminent domain, but they're not condemning it in a literal sense.
But I'm just wondering how they're going to find a person willing to buy that, knowing that it could be taken away.
Well, again, they're not going to take the whole property.
A good portion of it.
No, they're not even going to take a good portion of it. They're going to take a strip along the street, just wide enough to widen the right-of-way.
It's a vacant lot now.
Right.
They wouldn't need too much of that, I'm sure. It's good-sized piece of property.
Just as a point of interest, do you know where the curb cut is? Is that on Burlington
It's on
or
Peacedale Street.
Eastdale?
Peacedale.
Okay.
There's a three-car garage and it faced off.
All right.
Why does the city want it?
The city didn't want it, the city obtained it through foreclosure.
So why would the real estate committee want to discuss mention ownership of it?
Because they have it, the city now owns the property. Before the city can sell it, if that's what they want to do, by law they need to refer it to this commission on a referral. And then they will, based on what this commission recommends, that will provide them with some additional information as to what to do with it. There may be something that this commission is aware of that the real estate committee is not aware of as to why the city should retain it. But the city has it through as a result of foreclosure. I think the sense is the real estate committee wants to sell it, but they can't just go out to bid or ask the city to go out to bid to sell it without first referring it to this commission under 8-24 of the statutes.
You know, my first thought was, okay, let the city retain it. And the only reason I would say that is because of Nelson Field, but then thinking about Nelson Field, there's enough parking across the street, and that's what I was thinking initially. So, you know, in my opinion, I think the city should sell it. Because Nelson Field has their own parking, they have their own area, and it's a huge area. If it wasn't for that parking, I would say let the city retain it and use it for parking. Then you have another issue about people parking and then crossing the street. So, you know, in my opinion, I would recommend that they sell it. Any other comments? If none, any other comments?
No, I would
All right,
say I agree with that.
Then a motion will be in order as a recommendation to the city council to either sell it or not sell it. As an 8-24 referral to us. Motion is in order.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend or make a recommendation, 824 review, to recommend to the real estate committee to sell the property at 801 Burlington Avenue.
Second.
This is a referral to the real estate committee, correct? Not the city council?
That's correct. The real estate committee is obviously a committee of the council.
Okay, all right, very good. All right, the motion was made in second. Any discussion?
Do you want to state a reason why?
No.
I mean, it may be...
And the reasoning behind it is that there's nothing presently in the plan of conservation and development that indicates that the city has any use for this property other than as a residential piece of property.
Very good. And is there a second to that?
Second.
Okay, second. And then any other further discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
We also have under referral, sale of municipal property, 101 George Street.
And Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, just like this previous matter, excuse me, a letter from Attorney Simonik to Mr. Strawderman concerning 101 George Street. Again, the city acquired this property through, I believe, foreclosure. The real estate committee has referred this to this commission. They're looking to sell the property. They're not aware of any particular need for it, but as with the previous matter, it has been referred to this commission under 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes for you to review and make a recommendation as to whether or not the city should keep the property or sell it.
Any comments on this one? I mean, it seems like it's right between I don't know if they're multi-family houses or not, but I know George Street has a lot of them. And personally, I don't see the city needing that land for anything, other than if they want to sell it. Who knows, maybe both property owners might want to buy it. But my opinion would be sell it, let the city sell it, see if they can try and sell it, let's put it that way. Any other comments? If none, a motion will be in order. And as in the last applicant, just state a reason for or against.
Mr. Chairman, I move the Planning Commission recommend to the Real Estate Committee to sell the property at 101 George Street. The reason being that we have no actual city use of this property.
Motion was made.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next.
We would move on to old business. There is none. Move on to new business. We have review of the recommended priorities for the Community Development Block Grant 5-year Consolidated Plan 2015 to 2020, Bristol Development Authority.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, staff.
Got to talk right into the microphone.
Closer, okay. My name is Debbie Shapiro. I'm the Community Development Coordinator for the city. I work in the Bristol Development Authority with the Community Development Block Grant, which comes from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. Tonight I'm here for your review of the PDA recommendations on the priorities that we are going to use to make funding decisions over the next 5 years. And we don't know what our annual allocation is, but I will be back in March or April to make my usual annual appearance. So this is just an additional request for your opinions and any other comments that you might have about the priorities. They're very similar to the priorities that we've had for the last 5 years. We've added the Summer Street area as a target area. And I've organized or made a little more specific what the public facilities might concern. Public housing modernization organizations that benefit low to moderate income persons, such as BARC, or the Bristol Community Organizations, and other organizations that contribute to the quality of life in Bristol, such as the museums that we often help. Our intent is that these are ranked in order of our consideration, so that when we know what our annual allocation is, we first want to satisfy our first priority of housing rehabilitation. We've been doing that program for a number of decades, and I believe that it has helped maintain property value in the city throughout all its neighborhoods. And we are limited to 15% of the award for public services, and in the past we've helped organizations such as the food pantry and soup kitchen, the transitional program for women and children, and the program at Cambridge Park for at-risk youth. So those are the kinds of priorities that we've been addressing. And if there were any additional funds, then we would move down into these other areas. So I would be trying to explain that in the consolidated plan to HUD, because it could look on the surface that, well, we're going to do all of this. And in fact, when we had $250,000 additional dollars, not that long ago, we were able to address all of the priorities. But now we're thinking that, we're going to do our housing rehab, public services, and then move down if there's additional funds left over. So if you have any questions tonight,
What entails that 20% maximum for planning and administration? You know, what does that entail?
That is for the administration of all the programs, so to administer the housing rehab program oversight, to manage all of the sub-recipients on public facilities, public services rather, or any other projects that fall under our allocations for the year. So it's my salary and supplies and travel reimbursement and such, and we're way under 20%. So we're very austere.
Frugal.
Frugal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions? Comments? Mr. Weiner, anything?
I do see, I know that this commission, starting 4 or 5 years ago after the West End study was completed, very much advocated for identifying the West End neighborhood as a specific target area for some of the block grant money and much of the credit of the Development Authority. They've done that in the last several years. Obviously looking to do it again this year or next year as well. I think it's kind of interesting that there's a note, HUD acknowledges that targeting areas for a significant impact is a successful strategy for community development. I think that's something the Commission has been saying for a long time, and it's nice to see that, again, the Development Authority has agreed with that and included that. Now, I do have one question. Housing rehab and preservation, although that's a citywide program if someone is eligible in any neighborhood, am I correct?
Correct.
Okay, but certainly somebody who had a property in the West End, if they qualified, could be a participant in the housing rehab program.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if something in the target areas might be more along the lines of infrastructure, I think in the past sidewalks have been paid, the reconstruction of sidewalks have been paid for.
Correct.
With block grant money specifically in the West End.
Correct.
Okay.
And only the West End.
Right. And are there other kinds of activities that aren't rehab that would qualify in a neighborhood like the West End?
I wouldn't want to mention anything specific except to say that in your own West End study, you mentioned a number of different kinds of projects that could be funded by CDBG.
So there could be streetscape, I mean,
yes,
that kind of,
yes.
and the fact that it's identified in the West End study presumably provides kind of the planning background to help support expenditure money in the West End.
Correct. Go ahead.
Were you about to say something? I think something else in that study is economic development, something like that included in it.
Yes. And economic development takes a final place on the priorities, only really because we haven't had any requests for that type of activity. And just to let you know that at any point during the next 5 years, if we want to change some of these priorities, we can do that. It's called a substantial amendment, where we would, Bristol Development Authority committees and board would suggest the amendment. It would receive a public hearing. It would have a 30-day public comment period and go before the City Council. So it is possible, if something were to arise that became the way to go for the city, it could be changed. But this is a way that we can organize the 5-year plan, what at this point we think we are going to be funding. And the applications are all due this Friday. So we'll see what folks would like to do in the community, specifically.
So this plan really provides the framework for the next 5 years worth of funding.
Correct.
Okay. so on an annual basis, there'll be specific proposals when it comes time to allocate the money. And this plan provides kind of a reference point for assessing and evaluating those proposals.
That's correct, because when all the proposals come in on Friday, everything looks like it's needed. And so the BDA commissioners have to sit down and really evaluate them against our priorities. So, and it's very difficult because there are really good work being done, a lot of organizations needing help, and it's really hard to make the kinds of decisions, especially with a 25% cut over the past decade. And Congress made another small $30 million cut for this year, so I don't know how that's going to impact Bristol.
Right. So are you looking for a blessing on this?
Well, I'm looking for whatever it is that you would like to do in terms of comment, blessing as individual members, as a commission, and you don't have a deadline tonight. You can look at these over the next couple of weeks. There's a public hearing on February 10th. You could appear at that. You could give me something in writing, though, because that's what's going to help with my application to HUD, because all of this planning that we're doing has to be approved by HUD in the end.
Commissioners, any comments on this? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the proposal that you're presenting, in my opinion, is, adequate, as a starting point at least. Any other comments for Deborah?
No comments, but if she needs something in writing, I would propose that the chairman put something in writing to Bristol Development Authority that we endorse or like this plan.
That's fine.
Can we just endorse what she's given here, her proposed consolidated plan of priorities? Can we just, and then we won't have to put anything in writing?
Well, that's why.
Well, certainly.
Put it in writing.
Yeah, certainly if the commission votes to endorse the consolidated plan as presented, then the staff will prepare a letter, a memo to Ms. Shapiro stating that.
That would be appreciated, and thank you very much for...
Don't leave it. You may walk away with it.
Yeah, in my opinion, from what I've read so far, I would side towards endorsement.
So I would assume that a motion would be in order to endorse the proposed 5-year consolidated plan as presented tonight. So a motion would be in order.
I'd like to make a motion to endorse the consolidated 5-year plan as presented by the Bristol Development Authority in a memo dated January 17, 2015 to Commissioner.
Regarding the Community Development Block Grant.
Exactly. Regarding the Community Development Block Grant. Did I miss anything?
No, you're all set.
All right, that's the best I got.
Motion was made and second. Any further discussion? If none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Next order of business is a report reference activities of the Naugatuck Valley Regional Planning Commission.
Before we go into that, I just want to congratulate you on the City Council approving your appointment to this Regional Planning Commission.
Thank you very much. Well, I got 8 pages of minutes, so where do you want me to begin?
Summarize it.
It was an interesting meeting, our first meeting. We're going to be meeting 6 times a year, every other month. We added February in, though, because some members of the didn't show up. And there was a couple of things that we were working on that they wanted to make sure everyone had a chance to review. Part of that was, let me not get out of order. So one of the things that really came up that I think is going to be important, by the way, I'm the only one that volunteered. Everybody else was told to be there.
Let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah, well, that's okay. But one of the things that really came up was the fact that there needs to be a regional POCD. And normally in the past, apparently that's been done and handed down to whoever is the representative for that region, for each of the town in that particular region. And we talked about doing it differently because most towns have to do their POCD by the mid of this year, just like we do, and everything. So we're holding off doing that. The regional does not have any time limits. So what we're going to do is wait until we get all the towns and then build our regional POCD off of what the towns do. And again, it's a working document. It's not anything that is reflected of the needs and goals of the region. So we thought in order to do that, we really need to see what the towns are putting together. So that'll be a process to go through. We did have a temporary election of the chairperson, Ken Wong from Middlebury, but we'll be going through that process of making sure that we have all our officers nominated, and there's a nominating committee. They talked a lot about what the purpose was, mostly with referrals to the regional Planning Commission. Again, it was a little back and forth about what staff would really approve and take care of versus what we would get as a body and have to review and approve. So they anticipate that they'll probably get about 5 referrals a month, and that would be a lot. But most of everything is handled at the staff level. And one of the things we're going to do to help the process to communicate, since we're not meeting every month, is to do a lot of things online. So when a referral comes through, if we have something we want to add to it or a comment, we'd be able to do that through emails and online process so that the staff knows what we may be thinking or not thinking. But it was really just a night of introductions. And like I said, not everyone was there, so we actually have a special meeting planned for February.
How long was the meeting?
This one lasted an hour and a half.
Good. Thank you.
But I think part of it was because of, introductions, going through all that and everything. But it'll be an interesting process.
Good. Thank you for your report.
Mr. Chairman, if the Commission is amenable to it, we will place a similar item on our February planning agenda, and then every month that there's an RPA and the Regional Planning Commission meeting, we'll have this item on the agenda so that Commissioner Keaton can keep the board up to date.
And I know Bob got copies of this, but they actually, I don't know if he shared with you the months that we're planning, because we skipped July.
Right.
So if you need...
I'll confer with him, and we'll get that schedule and make sure that the months that the RPC meets, that there'll be an item on the Planning Commission agenda here.
That'll be good.
Thank you.
It's kind of a first.
I
It
know.
is. This is great. Great. Next.
Well, let me add one more thing. I just felt odd. I really just felt odd because I don't think of Bristol as being part. Like, I can take Wolcott, Waterbury, but to go all the way down to Ansonia and Derby just felt a little odd as to what are we really going to have as goals for regional things and stuff. So I think that'll give some time to take
That's why you're
and get
there.
used to.
Yeah, you told me what we want.
All right, next order of business.
Next order.
We have staff reports, monthly subdivision status report.
And as we always do, we included in your packets the subdivision status report for this month. One item of note, and it's highlighted up under Cold Springs Farms, Section 5. That's the section of that Delfino development off of Village Street on a street called Field Rock Road. You will notice that on December 23rd of last year, right around Christmas time, about a month ago, we did receive from Mr. Delfino a bond in the amount of $240,000. That covers the cost of the public improvements in that subdivision. However, the subdivision has expired, and I think you may recall we had this conversation a couple of months ago that he needs to come back to this commission and request, I believe he has up to a total of 4 more years that he could get under the statutes to extend the subdivision out, but he has not made that request. Mr. Strawderman may be able to bring you more up to date on that. And what you may want to do is give him some time to do that, or to declare the subdivision null and void. I mean, we've got a bond, but the bond is applicable to a subdivision that technically has expired.
Mr. Strawderman, any updates on this?
No, we have not heard from him nor contacted him recently, so we can send him a letter after this meeting just reminding him of that, so it's on the record and everybody knows it, and I imagine we'll see something from him before next time.
Thank you. Next.
Update of the 2000 Plan on Conservation and Development.
As you all know, the public information meeting that was scheduled for 2 Saturdays ago at the library was canceled because of the weather. A good call by everybody about to do that. And subsequent to that, our offices chatted with Glenn Chalder of Planometrics about the potential for rescheduling that public information meeting. We recognize that the chairman is going to be busy for the next couple of months, and his schedule is probably less flexible, if flexible at all. But Mr. Chalder would certainly like, if the commission is amenable, to reschedule that public information meeting. We would try to structure it the same way as the original meeting was intended, 2-hour listening session. Certainly we can try to see if the library is available, if that suits the commission. Mr. Chalder has given me 5 dates that he is currently available. One date would be, in fact, next Wednesday, which is the night that you would normally have your workshop meeting with Mr. Chalder to discuss the Plan of Conservation Development. You could hold the public information session that night, and that would replace your meeting with him, because quite honestly, if you hold that meeting, there's going to be anything to talk about, because we really want to have the public information meeting. He's also available on Saturday, February 7th, February 14th, and February 21st. He's also available on Tuesday, February 17th. If you chose another night or another date instead of February 4th, you may want to cancel that meeting date out and replace it with the listening session in February. But that's really your call. So I don't know if you want to try to pick a date now, or how you want to do this. It might be worth a couple of minutes of discussing it.
It's up to the commissioners on this one.
I think February 4th, because this is a public meeting, that's kind of close in terms of notifying the public. mean, you want the public to be there.
Sure, but you're right. I mean, that gives people less than a week's notice. That's true.
How long is normal for notice? How long is normal for notice?
Well, I think ideally you'd like to give people a couple of weeks' notice. You're at the mercy of people's own schedules and the weather. But I would concur that doing it next Wednesday is cutting it kind of tight in terms of trying to get a little bit of publicity. If it was scheduled a little bit farther out, we can do a little bit more publicity on it and perhaps get some people to come out. And I know, again, Saturdays are tough for everybody, but those are 3 dates that he's available, and again, as well as Tuesday the 17th. I can tell you that if it makes a difference, the 14th, that Saturday is the Saturday of President's Day weekend. I don't know if that makes a difference to anybody.
Plus, it's Valentine's Day.
Plus, it's Valentine's Day. Well, but maybe if you hold it then, there'll be a lot of love in the room.
Be a lot of love in the air.
Well, I would say if you're going to give them a few weeks' notice, at least next Saturday is too close also. So, and I don't think you should schedule it on Valentine's Day or a holiday weekend because people might be going away. Plus, the kids have 2 days off on Monday and Tuesday, so so I would say Saturday the 21st.
Other commissioners?
I have no issue with any of the dates, but I would prefer the 21st.
21st, yeah. Commissioner?
I have issues with all of them.
Okay.
You've had issues with everything.
Well,
No,
it's that part of the season, and
For you.
Yeah, we get it.
I hear you.
it's difficult. Saturdays work best, Tuesday the 17th, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
No way.
Commissioner LaRanger?
Saturday the 21st works for me.
Commissioner Wong?
Oh, definitely the 21st.
Okay.
Commissioner Soares?
Oh, sorry.
All right.
I would say 21st.
Mr. Winick?
We will do it any day that
Looks like the 21st.
we will schedule.
Mr. Harrigan.
We'll do it at we'll schedule it for 9 a.m. To 11 a.m. on the 21st. I will try tomorrow to see if we can get a room at the library again. They're very helpful to us there, and assuming that's the case, we'll get the word out. Does the commission, in light of that, does the commission want to cancel its meeting on the 4th? I don't believe, again, I can double check with Mr. Chalder, but my sense was that had we had the public information meeting when it was initially scheduled, you would have used the meeting on the 4th to primarily talk about the public feedback that you got. So it may be kind of moot at this point to meet. So if it's the commission's...
Yes.
All right, we will do that. I will attempt to get in after we have confirmed the 21st. I will try to get you an email out tomorrow or Friday reminding you of the cancellation next Wednesday and remind you to pencil in the 21st for your meeting.
Mr. Striderman, I didn't mean to slight you, but do you attend these sometime?
Saturdays generally are not good for me, so probably I won't be at this one.
Okay.
Alan, did you and Glenn talk schedule at all? I mean, basically this puts us a month behind where we thought we would be, and he was nervous about schedule to begin with.
Yeah, it did come up, but this is one of the dates that he gave me. I will double check. I think before I schedule this for sure, I will call Mr. Chalder, and we'll see what it does to the schedule. It may push it a little bit. We may end up having to have another interim meeting at some point. But when I asked him about dates in February, these are the dates he gave me, and he didn't appear to balk at them. Again, we may have to do a little bit of crunching as we get in more to the spring, but so be it.
Before we adjourn, Sean, did you want to say anything?
Okay. Good, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, I do, actually.
You got to
Come to the mic.
You got to go to the mic.
We'll get you on record and then put the camera so it faces you.
And I did have a couple of things, but I'll let Mr. Ruiz, Jeff.
I just wanted to say I'm glad it's not the 14th and off to buy chocolate for everybody. And secondly, I had the regional meeting on video, so if you want to look on YouTube at what transpired, I have it up. I'll
Thank you.
give you a link.
I want to change
What's your name and address for the record?
Sean Ruest, R-U-E-S-T, 53 Lancaster Road.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Weiner, you
Yeah, I just had a couple things. I will distribute to you at the end of the meeting. You may recall that a month or two ago, you received a referral from the zoning commission concerning adding high-tech businesses to the zoning regulations. The zoning commission did adopt amendments to the regulations. It was a rather interesting discussion. What they settled on, you may recall that what you saw was a definition of high-tech businesses and allowing it downtown by special permit and in our industrial zones by right. What we ended up with, which was kind of interesting, it took 2 meetings, was the amendment in the downtown business zone. The concern that the zoning commission had was about the manufacturing component. I think you folks, a couple of people here expressed that as well. Do we want to turn one of these businesses into a big manufacturing facility right downtown? So what the zoning commission ended up doing was they split high-tech businesses in the downtown business zone into 2 types. Those that have no manufacturing component. They're not making the product that they're doing R&D on. You can do a prototype, but you can't make it there. It's allowed by right. If there's a manufacturing component, you need a special permit if it's downtown. And there's a limitation of how much of the facility can be manufacturing.
Interesting.
So that's what the commission ended up with. And again, after you adjourn the meeting, I'm going to provide you with replacement pages for your zoning regulations. So you take these pages, punch them, do whatever you do with them, take these pages, old pages out, put these new pages in, your regulations should be up to date. And we're probably going to have new sets of regulations reprinted probably late spring, early summer. Second thing real quick, reminder that if you're interested in attending the Bar Association's Land Use Law Seminar on March 21st, still have 3 slots. Commissioners Lawton and Loringer from this commission have indicated that they're going to attend and have someone from the zoning commission. But if there are other members who want to go, please let me know. The last 2 things, as you know, we're trying to wean our land use boards away from print packets. What we're going to probably start to do with this commission and the zoning commission starting in March is the only packet you'll get ahead of time will be the digital packet. But for 2 or 3 months, starting in again, March or April, we will bring print packets for you, but we'll bring them to the meeting. Okay? So we want to try to get people used to looking ahead of time with the digital version, and then, but you'll know that when you come to the meeting, you'll have a print packet, but eventually we'll phase that out as well. One thing, I'm certainly not the most sophisticated person about using your digital documents in PDF format, but there's an easy way that I discovered, because you're getting your digital packet as a PDF, and it's 40, 50 pages long. All the documents are there in order. Well, if you're looking at it on your computer or on your device, and you're looking at the PDF, on the left-hand side of the screen, I think this is probably true for the desktop version, but maybe an iPad as well. On the left-hand side of the screen, there's a button that's labeled as bookmark. If you click on that button, it drops down a list of all the pages in the packet, in the document. And then if you click on one of those pages, it'll bring you to that page. So if you want to see something on page 43, you don't have to scroll all the way down to 43. If you know what the document is, you can click on it on the left-hand side in the bookmarks, and it'll bring you right to it. So that may help you navigate a little bit more easily in that big document. So that's all I got.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Anybody has anything about making a motion?